Hello everyone, welcome back to Game a Movie Recap. In today's video, we will be going through a war drama film entitled My Way from 2011. Chill out and enjoy.
But before we start, please support our channel by subscribing and click the bell icon for future notifications. Now, let's start.
The movie begins in the year 1948 in London, where a race is happening, when a man named Jun-shik suddenly gets the attention of the crowd as he makes his way to the front of the race. Rewinding to Gyeongsang, Korea in 1928, Tatsuo Hasegawa, a young boy, recently arrived in Korea in a posh car when he noticed the child Jun-shik running next to their vehicle. Tatsuo is the great-grandson of an Imperial Army veteran, and Jun-shik works on the Hasegawa farm with his father and sister. As they grew older, Jun-shik and Tatsuo developed a rivalry in running. Tatsuo won the most recent national high school marathon, though they each had their own victory over the other. The Hasegawa family celebrates Tatsuo's victory. While Tatsuo's grandfather is introducing him to everyone, a man hands Jun-shik's father a gift. He gives it to the old Hasegawa, saying that it's from the Japanese Minister of Defense. But to everyone's surprise, it's a bomb, and Tatsuo's grandfather died when he sacrificed himself for everybody. Angry, Tatsuo launches at Jun-shik's father, accusing him of killing his grandfather. Jun-shik stops Tatsuo, but his father gets arrested. Afterward, the family leaves Hasegawa's place, and Tatsuo threatens to kill them if they dare to show their faces again. The scene changes in the year 1938. Jun-shik is now working as a rickshaw runner. Meanwhile, Tatsuo, who is now a Japanese nationalist, swears that Koreans will never win any marathon again. It turns out that Koreans are banned from taking part in any sports event, after finding out that Son Ki-jung, the last Korean marathon champion, is part of the plan to kill Tatsuo's grandfather. When Jun-shik gets to the destination faster, his passenger pays him a lot, but to his surprise, the passenger knows his name. He receives a call from a buddy, but he is interrupted by Jun-shik's passengers. He recognizes the man, but is speechless. The passenger, who is later identified as Son Ki-jung, interrupts Tatsuo's press conference and accuses the Athletics Association of injustice for barring Koreans from the trouts. Without Jun-shik, he claims, the race with Tatsuo would be monotonous. In the crowd, a reporter identifies Jun-shik. In spite of Jun-shik's attempts to depart, his companion pulls him closer to the center. Tatsuo and Jun-shik meet again, and they challenge each other in a race. Tatsuo then receives his admission letter from Berlin Medical University, but he chooses to remain because he wants to support the war effort, while also concentrating on his marathon career. Tatsuo says that he would sooner die than heal the Korean people who slaughtered his grandfather, when his father advises him to put other people before his country. Eun-soo, meantime, supports Jun-shik and wants to see him participate in the trouts. Soon later, Ki-jung appears and gives Jun-shik the application for the Olympic trouts. His friend Lee Jong-da is overjoyed for him and starts telling people that Jun-shik will take part in the race once more, and that the crowd will be cheering for him. The day of the marathon arrives, and Jun-shik's father picks the best shoes he can afford for him. Meanwhile, Tatsuo doesn't care about his parents watching him race. Tatsuo shows up first to the finish line, followed by another racer. But the Koreans got their hopes up after seeing that Jun-shik is catching up. Another competitor starts to collide with him, but it is he who trips, and Jun-shik triumphs in the marathon. The Korean crowd, as well as Tatsuo and his parents, are taken aback as Tatsuo receives the champion medal. The findings are met with protests from the Korean audience. Everyone is informed by the speaker that Jun-shik has been disqualified for tripping the other racer due to blocking him. Jun-shik attacks the Athletics Association chairman on stage after becoming enraged. When the security attempts to stop him, Jun-shik fights back, which causes the security to beat him up. The security is then attacked by Jong-dae, and a disturbance ensues as a group of Korean spectators attack. All those who took part in the riot are forced into the Imperial Army as a form of retribution. The scene changes in the year 1939 in the Mongolian borderland. Colonel Takakura, the Imperial soldiers' leader, orders a withdrawal as the enemy forces encircle the Imperial soldiers. Then, we observe how poorly Korean soldiers are being handled by their Japanese superiors. Someone instantly fell to the ground after being shot by a sniper. The sniper is too good, yet the others cover. When Jun-shik locates the sniper, He begs Jang Dae to cover for him before going to the target. He learns that the sniper is a woman while the two are engaged in combat. Shirai, the female sharpshooter, is taken prisoner when the other soldiers show up. During their travel, the soldiers rip the family picture of Shirai, and she starts crying. At their base, one of the Japanese superiors hit the Korean soldiers because only the Japanese died during the incident. Meanwhile, another officer is interrogating Shirai. It turns out that her family was killed by the Japanese and worse, they raped her and her mother. The Japanese continue hitting Shirai and the Koreans when Colonel Takakura arrives and stops them. The next day, Tatsuo, who is now a colonel, arrives and takes the place of Colonel Takakura, after he's been demoted for shamefully calling a retreat and punished for committing seppuku. As soon as Colonel Tatsuo takes command, he shows everyone his eagerness to fight the Soviet soldiers and insists that retreat is not an option for the Imperial Army. The family photo that Jun-shik had glued together is then returned to Shirai. The action shifts to Korean troops, Jun-shik and others being recruited to join the suicide squad that will use bombs to destroy the opposing tanks. But Jun-shik bravely declares that he will not be participating in the suicide expedition. Because of this defiance, Shirai and Jun-shik are both assaulted and put in prison. Before they leave for the mission tomorrow, they want to execute him and the other prisoners. Soon after, Shirai and Jun-shik are helped to flee by Jun-shik's pals. To cross the border, they all head to the river, but as they get there, they spot the Soviets advancing on them. But instead of going with his friends, Jun-shik runs back to camp to warn them. While on the run, a Soviet plane catches up and fires at him. Shirai suddenly shows up and shoots the plane down. However, she is killed in the process. In her dying breath, Shirai tells Jun-shik to go save his friends, while Tatsuo refuses to order a withdrawal and pushes the Imperial Army to continue fighting. Jun-shik is able to return to the base and alert the Imperial Army. As additional enemy tanks approach, the Imperial forces continue to fight a losing struggle after taking out a number of hostile tanks. Tatsuo starts shooting the soldiers who are fleeing because he won't give up, which compels the remaining soldiers to keep fighting. When Jun-shik notices this, he confronts Tatsuo and begs him to signal for a withdrawal, but he is dissuaded when a second Japanese soldier strikes him. As they approach an enemy tank, Tatsuo stands up, picks up the explosives and drags Jun-shik along with him. However, the opposing tank fires at them, sending the two soldiers flying. Luckily, the two survive and they are imprisoned along with other survivors. They are taken into the Soviet Union prisoner of war camp. There, the soldiers are forced to an oath to serve the Soviet Union. Then Tatsuo is ordered to step on the Japanese flag as proof of surrendering, but he instead picks it up and waves it proudly, causing the Soviets to punish him. The soldiers are then brought into the labor camp where Jun-shik meets his friends who had planned to flee but ended up being captured by the Soviets as well. When Jang Dae is found, he is shocked to see that he is the work unit commander going by the name of Anton. The reunion of the two buddies is met with excitement. His former leader also recognizes him, but unlike before, Jang Dae fights back and establishes his authority over the other Japanese soldiers. Tatsuo is later carried to their quarters where his soldiers tend to him right away. The following day, Tatsuo takes charge, but Jang Dae simply laughs at him, and Jun-shik is unconcerned. Tatsuo and Jun-shik end up fighting as a result of this. However, a Soviet commander caught them and ordered them to fight to the death as punishment. After dropping a knife on the ground, the two start fighting once more. Although Jun-shik prevails in the struggle, he declines to kill Tatsuo. The officers inspect each prisoner for frostbite the following day after work, and one of their buddies is taken after learning that he has on his foot. In the meantime, Jang Dae discovers one of their friends stealing food from the storehouse. When Soviet forces approach, Jang Dae decides to save him rather than letting him go as he had planned. Their friend is then executed by hanging as punishment. Afterward, Jun-shik confronts Jang Dae, but he is changed and tells Jun-shik to call him Anton from then on. Afterward, the commander talks to Tatsuo and tells him that they talked to Japan about the prisoners' reparations, but they refuse. The next day, an accident happens and Jang Dae beats the Japanese for their clumsiness. Tatsuo's adjutant stops him, but Jang Dae accidentally kills him. Angry, Tatsuo attacks Jang Dae, and this results in a riot. Afterward, all the people who incited the riot is being executed. But when it's time for Jun-shik and Tatsuo's execution, an alarm goes off. A Soviet soldier hands a telegram to the commander, and they order all prisoners to change into Soviet army uniforms afterward. It turns out that Germany has declared war against them, and Stalin gives the prisoners a chance to live and serve the Soviet Union. Surprisingly, Jang Dae talks to the commander to give Jun-shik and Tatsuo a chance to participate in the war as well. During the battle in Zhidovsk, they all fight against the Germans, but Jang Dae dies during the struggle. Jang Dae makes a final apology to Jun-shik. Tatsuo, meanwhile, recognizes himself in the Soviet colonel who massacres retreating soldiers. Fortunately, Jun-shik and Tatsuo make it out alive and decide to travel to German territory. Jun-shik discovers Tatsuo's wounds while on the road. Fortunately, they find an empty house and Jun-shik goes outside to look for some medications. He seeks assistance from German soldiers he spots while exploring the deserted town. But because they cannot communicate with one another, they simply capture him. We hear troops yelling for Tatsuo and searching the house next to him. 3 years later, Tatsuo became part of the German army, and he heard his comrade talking about the secret merchant ship to Jamaica. While having his meal, he spots someone familiar, but he's just mistaken. His comrade approaches him and tells him to give up finding Jun-shik because he's the only Asian there. After their work at the beach, Tatsuo sees someone running and recognizes it immediately to be Jun-shik. The two catch up and talk, but it turns out that Jun-shik became partially deaf after saving Tatsuo before. A final apology from Jang Dae to Jun-shik. Tatsuo, on the other hand, sees a reflection of himself in the Soviet colonel who kills the retreating men. Soldiers can be heard scouring the residence adjacent to Tatsuo and calling for him, but they are locked inside by a German soldier. The Americans land at the bay, and they are forced to fight. As soon as the German leaves, the two try to leave, but they have no other choice but to fight. When they start running out of ammo, they start forcing their way out. An American soldier sees them and drops grenades on the pillbox. Luckily, the two manage to get out before the explosion. When they manage to get out, they see the chaos outside. They start running as the Americans overpower them. Unfortunately, Jun-shik gets wounded as bombs explode here and there. He shrugs it off and they continue running, wanting to get home to their family. But another explosion caught them off guard and it gravely injures Jun-shik. When he notices the Americans coming, Jun-shik tells Tatsuo that he will now go by the name Jun-shik, and they exchange identity tags. He might be killed right away if the Americans discover that he is Japanese. As he passes away, Jun-shik assures Tatsuo that he has no regrets and commands him to pledge that he will return home alive. As the Americans get closer, Tatsuo sobs in pain. The action then shifts back to the present, when Tatsuo is running a marathon while assuming the identity of Kim Jun-shik and carrying his friend's will. Then he recalls Jun-shik saying that he was glad Tatsuo was his running companion because they had been friends since they were young. The movie ends with the two young Jun-shik and Tatsuo being happy racing together. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more recap of your favorite movie. See you again.